Good afternoon. Welcome to the Long Live Third Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., a third party books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Today I read Independent Party of Florida versus Secretary, Florida 967F3D1277, Court of Appeals, 11th Circuit, 2020. Friends, if you're interested in politics, Florida, and or Florida politics, you've come to the right place, because we're going to talk about Florida politics today. This case involves not only the Independent Party of Florida, which we discussed when reading the citation of the case, but also the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Any of you from Florida who have voted for the Independent Party of Florida, shout out right now to you. Any of you out there voted for the Party of Socialism and Liberation? I want to hear you proclaim you did if you did. These are solid third parties. So what happened here? The decision says, quote, "This appeal requires us to decide whether Florida ballot access law for presidential elections complies with the United States Constitution," end quote. We've been discussing ballot access laws in these cases in these podcasts. And it seems like every state has a little different way of setting up their ballot access laws. So we're going to talk about how Florida does that today. So they, in this decision, talk about how there's two ways you can get on the ballot in Florida if you're not one of the two parties. One way is getting at least 1% of the signatures, or the second way is to be a part of a national party that qualifies. As the decision says, quote, "The Independent Party of Florida and the Party for Socialism and Liberation seek to place their presidential candidates on the ballot in Florida without satisfying either requirement. The district court denied their motion for a preliminary injunction against the enforcement of these requirements," end quote. At this point, what do you think, friends? Do you think they should be allowed on the ballot without satisfying either requirements? Do you think there's other reasons to allow them on the ballot? Let me know. One issue they talk about here is the issue of standing. They say the Party for Socialism and Liberation has standing. That's one section that says, A, the Party for Socialism and Liberation has standing. They say that because they did already select candidates. Whereas, according to this, at this time, the Independent Party of Florida did not do that yet. So they do grant that concession. Although that's not the ultimate glory, any concession we can get, we use the momentum to go up, up, up. They also mention in Florida, they had this law which charged money, 10 cents to be exact, each signature for these ballot access attempts. What do you think about that? Do you think that's fair? I don't like that, because when they did the math of how many signatures they require, that's going to be a lot of money. 10 cents for each signature, that means every 10 signatures you pay $1. So that adds up fast. I wouldn't like to have to pay for that if I was a candidate in Florida. Would you? No, you probably would not. Now, they did change that law according to this. It says that the state has a possibility where you don't have to pay if you can show you can't afford it. So, it still looks like it would apply to most people. I don't know specifically what that would be. Maybe some other time we can discuss some of these laws like this one. We'll see. We'll see. We can look at the law like we did in our podcast of obscenity law. We have been looking at laws on the books in addition to how they're mentioned in the court cases. So we'll think about that, friends. The court here says that it doesn't matter about this requirement because it doesn't mean they discriminate against third parties. So they ultimately say the following, quote, "For these reasons we conclude that the provision of different routes to the ballot for differently situated minor parties is justified by sufficiently weighing state interests," end quote. And they also say, quote, "We affirm the denial of the motion for a preliminary injunction," end quote. Friends, we didn't win this time, but that doesn't mean we can't ever win in these ballot access cases. I love to see what third parties are doing. And maybe someday you and I can vote for the Party for Socialism and Liberation. I don't plan on going to Florida anytime soon. I like it in Texas. But if you live in Florida, maybe you can vote for the Independent Party of Florida. If for any other reason that they are third parties, you can also have the reason they fought for us in this case, this trial. So friends, let's take heart in this and then let this motivate us. Long live third parties. Goodbye.